The story of Taoism begins in ancient China, during the 6th century BCE, a time when philosophers, rulers, and wandering teachers were all searching for answers about how to live well in a world that seemed endlessly unstable. Wars raged, empires crumbled, and ordinary people felt the weight of chaos. Out of this world of uncertainty emerged one of the most unusual voices in world philosophy. A way of thinking that didn't try to control life through rigid rules or strict systems, but instead suggested something far simpler. This was Taoism. At its center lies the Tao, often translated as the Way. The Tao is not a god or a set of commandments. It is the underlying rhythm of the universe itself, the current of life that everything belongs to and everything moves within. The foundational text, the Tao Te Ching, attributed to the sage Laozi, opens with a line that has puzzled and inspired readers for over 2 millennia. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Right away, the philosophy declares that ultimate truth cannot be captured in words. You can talk about it, you can point toward it, but as soon as you try to pin it down, it slips away. Historians still argue whether Laozi was a real person or more of a legendary figure woven out of folklore. One story says he was an archivist who, weary of human corruption, mounted an ox and rode westward, leaving behind a slim book of poetry at the request of a border guard before vanishing forever. Whether fact or myth, the tale captures something essential about Taoism itself: wisdom revealed in paradox and then left to echo in mystery. Against rival traditions like Confucianism, which emphasized strict rituals, and legalism, which demanded harsh punishments, Taoism offered something radically different. It taught that the most powerful way to live was to stop fighting the current and learn to move with it. To strain against the flow of life is exhausting. To flow with it brings harmony. This idea, poetic yet practical, would shape Chinese thought for centuries. From the beginning, Taoist thinkers described the universe not as a battlefield of good and evil, but as a rhythm of complementary forces. This vision is most famously captured in the symbol of yin and yang, the swirling circle of black and white that contains a dot of its opposite within each half. Yin represents the dark, receptive, and yielding; yang the bright, active, and assertive. Rather than being enemies, they are partners. Night gives way to day, winter softens into spring, stillness becomes movement. The world, Taoism teaches, unfolds as a continuous cycle, not a clash. The Tao Te Ching explains this interdependence with striking simplicity. When people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. Here, Laozi reminds us that categories are born in relation to one another. You cannot know light without shadow, or fullness without emptiness. Scholars still debate whether yin and yang was intended as a cosmological claim about the structure of the universe or as a metaphor for human experience. But either way, the lesson is clear. Opposites define each other, transform into each other, and together create balance. Quirky stories from early Taoist practice bring this philosophy to life. Some Taoist sages believed that illness came from an imbalance of yin and yang within the body, and so they practiced breathing exercises and meditation to restore harmony. Others advised rulers to govern according to the same principle. If a king ruled with too much force, too much yang, he would provoke resistance, while if he ruled with gentleness, more yin, he could maintain order with minimal effort. The ideal was not domination but balance. This idea often clashed with rival philosophies. The legalists, who valued strict punishments, scoffed at the thought of yielding as strength. Confucians argued that social harmony required rigid rituals. Yet Taoism suggested something more daring: that real order arises not from control, but from balance, from recognizing the push and pull that already underlies the cosmos. To see the world through yin and yang is to recognize that harmony is not imposed, it is discovered in the flow of opposites. If yin and yang describe the balance of the universe, then Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, explains how humans should live within that balance. At first, the phrase sounds puzzling, as though Taoism were encouraging people to do nothing at all. But Wu Wei does not mean idleness. It means acting in a way so attuned to the flow of the world that no strain is felt, no forcing is required. It is effortless action, like the way water runs downhill, or a tree grows toward the sun without planning to do so. The Tao Te Ching puts it in paradoxical terms. The Tao never acts, yet through it all things are done. The idea is that when one aligns with the Tao, results emerge naturally, without coercion. You can imagine a skilled musician who has practiced so long that the music seems to flow through their fingers without thought, or an athlete in the zone, moving in perfect synchrony with the game. That state of easeful excellence is what Taoists meant by Wu Wei. Stories from early Taoist traditions illustrate the principle. A famous tale describes a butcher who never had to sharpen his knife. Instead of hacking through bone, he let the blade follow the natural seams in the joints. Because he did not force it, the knife remained sharp for decades. His mastery was not in strength, but in attunement. The story became a parable for Taoist life. Skill emerges not from battling obstacles, but from flowing with their structure. Philosophers still debate whether Wu Wei was intended primarily as political advice or spiritual guidance. Some argue it urged rulers to govern with a light hand, letting people live simply without heavy control. Others see it as a personal ethic, teaching individuals how to live with less resistance and more grace. What remains consistent is the message. Forcing leads to exhaustion, but flowing leads to harmony. In Taoism, the most powerful person is not the one who dominates the world, but the one who moves in tune with it. Taoism has always drawn its wisdom from the natural world, seeing mountains, rivers, and forests not as backdrops for human life, but as teachers in their own right. Where other traditions look to law codes or human institutions for guidance, Taoists turn their gaze outward, to the way water flows, the way seasons shift, the way valleys embrace rivers. The Tao itself is often described in natural imagery. It is like water, nourishing all without striving, like the valley, lowly yet essential, like the uncarved block, simple and full of potential. The Tao Te Ching is filled with these metaphors. The highest good is like water, one verse reads. Water benefits all things and does not compete. It stays in lowly places which others disdain. Therefore, it is close to the Tao. Here, water is not only a physical element, but a philosophical model. It yields, yet shapes stone. It seeks the low places, yet sustains life. Its power comes precisely from its softness. This inversion of values, strength found in yielding, greatness found in humility, is one of Taoism's most distinctive contributions to philosophy. Quirky stories of Taoist sages underline this intimacy with nature. Some retreated into mountains, living on herbs and practicing breathing techniques, claiming that by aligning their breath with the wind and their spirit with the stars, they could live longer, even indefinitely. Others wrote of wandering like clouds, unbound by duty or possession, embodying the freedom they found in nature's cycles. To their critics, these figures seemed eccentric, even foolish. But their strangeness was deliberate, a rejection of society's obsession with status and rigidity. Scholars still debate whether Taoism's reverence for nature was primarily practical, rooted in agriculture and observation of the seasons, or metaphysical, treating nature as the visible expression of the Tao itself. Either way, the effect was profound. Taoism reminded its followers that humans are not separate from the natural order, but woven into it. Just as trees grow and rivers flow, people too are part of the same rhythm. To live wisely is not to stand apart from nature, but to remember one's place within it, flowing as it flows. Across centuries, Taoism has shifted, adapted, and inspired. What began as a slender book of poetry and paradox grew into a tradition that influenced medicine, politics, art, and even martial practices. Taoist temples rose with incense curling toward the sky, while wandering hermits disappeared into valleys and mountains. Emperors sometimes invoked Taoist wisdom to justify gentle governance, though others borrowed its mystical aura for legitimacy. Meanwhile, ordinary people practiced Taoist rituals for healing, long life, and harmony, blending philosophy with daily life. Taoism never stayed confined to the library. It flowed outward, as living as the rivers it praised. The philosophy also sparked centuries of debate. Scholars still argue whether Taoism is best understood as a religious tradition with rituals and deities, or as a philosophy of life expressed in verse and parable. Some emphasize its mystical practices, alchemy, meditation, and quests for immortality. Others focus on its ethical insights, like humility, balance, and harmony with nature. The truth may be that Taoism has always been both, a set of practices rooted in everyday life, and a philosophical lens that asks people to see the world differently. Its adaptability, its refusal to be one thing, is itself very Taoist. The legacy extended far beyond China. In the 20th century, as translations of the Tao Te Ching spread, Western philosophers, poets, and even scientists were captivated by its imagery. Some physicists saw in Taoist paradoxes a poetic anticipation of quantum theory, where particles can be waves and opposites coexist. Artists found inspiration in the idea of effortless flow. Psychologists compared Wu Wei to modern ideas of flow states, when people lose themselves in creative activity. Taoism seemed to speak not only to ancient farmers and emperors, but to anyone, anywhere, who felt the pressure of forcing against life. What remains most striking is its invitation to simplicity. Taoism does not ask followers to memorize commandments or conquer desires. Instead, it says, look at the river, watch the seasons, notice how the universe already moves. To live wisely is not to dominate but to align, not to resist but to flow. In a modern world full of noise, stress, and rigid demands, this ancient philosophy offers something still radical, that the greatest strength often comes not from force, but from yielding. The Tao, invisible yet everywhere, continues to whisper its quiet truth, that harmony is found not in control, but in flow.